Live from Spare Bedroom Studios, you are listening to Under PDT.
Thanks, guys, for checking out today's Under PDT. I almost forgot the name of our show. Today's Under PDT, we have Mike from Foos 4 Trading. He's going to give us a little insight into how he developed as primarily a microcap trader and how he came to his position in moderating a room that has, harvested a handful of successful traders to this point. And we'll talk to him about what it takes for people to come from being a noob to ultimately being successful. But like we do with every guest, before we get into anything serious at all, because we can only handle so much of that, we're going to have a long short of the week, and we're going to have it come from Mike right now. Mike, what do you have long?
All right, guys. So I've been thinking about this. I am long Alonzo Trier on the Knicks, and I'm short ODB on the Giants.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Well,
who's ODB?
I know, you old dirty bastard, aka Odell Beckham. Is that what?
Okay.
Are we changing his name?
Or OBJ. I'm sorry.
No, but that's a good. We've had a lot of Wu-Tang references on our long short of the week. Ricky was long the Wu-Tang. You're not actually short old dirty bastard. You're short Odell Beckham.
Yeah, I like it better now.
Yeah, I know that's actually two New York sports ones. And when you first said I'm long somebody on the Knicks, I was like, oh my God, we might have to just cut him off before the season starts.
Yeah, that's tough, right?
That is
go
tough.
against the crowd a little bit.
No, I actually like that. That's a contra trend call because God, that trend. If the Knicks had a 200-day moving average, they'd be eons below it. Short Odell Beckham, something I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I feel like after someone gets a fat contract like he has, it's only downhill from here.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we can definitely second that because neither Wes nor I are fans.
No.
Wes is actually doing his best right now to not get too far on a tangent, and I'm trying to bait him, but we won't get carried away. But let's get into the interview, man. I'll kick it off. What niche is it that you trade, and is that niche necessarily the focus of the room you moderate?
So I basically focus on small cap stocks that are under 2 billion market cap, and ideally under $10. That is what we try and focus on in the room. But I also I'm willing to trade anything above $10 as well, so long as it fits the small cap niche. But I'm mainly basically teaching people how to trade small cap stocks under $10 in the room. Most of the people start with small capital, so they tend to like these lower price stocks because they have higher percentage moves. So that's what we focus on.
I mean, obviously we're biased, but we're primarily microcap traders ourselves, even though I've traded a lot of beta lately, but we're primarily microcap traders ourselves. And that's definitely the best avenue for smaller, younger accounts to actually get to a point where they're viable long-term. So, that's something to keep in mind if any of you are under PDT actually listening to Under PDT.
That's the name of the game.
Everyone starts somewhere, right? It's tough,
Yep.
but it's definitely. I think that when you see these percentage moves, in the small cap world, like you guys know, it's definitely an attractable niche for someone starting out that doesn't have a lot of money.
Right, like Solo today.
Basically, exactly. Right.
And just all the Star Wars nerds just flocking to it as well. They can't help it.
Wes, you traded Solo today, didn't you?
I did. I went rogue. Traded Solo.
All right. Well, something behind the scenes people won't realize that I was supposed to talk about our trades a little bit today, but I just went right into asking Mike questions. So there's fuck up number one on the interview. It only took 3.5 minutes to get there.
That's okay.
What else did you, Mike? Did you trade Solo as well?
I wanted to, but I could not locate. That was my only issue. I know that. I think Wes, did I message you? I
texted
available
you.
with some brokers, but
it was available at Cobra.
Yeah, Cobra had it.
ETB at that too. Weren't even making us pay up for it.
And right? Cobra has great borrows, and I get a lot of free borrows a lot of times locating pre-market, but something like that being easy to borrow, and it takes me back to like 2014, 2015, the heydays. No locate fees ever.
Oh, that's a thing of the past now, man. We could kiss those days goodbye.
Sounds like Disneyland for older people.
Yeah, that's not happening anymore. I actually traded solo as well. I traded them. I totally missed out long, even though there was an impetus to go long, in my opinion. But I totally missed it. I did catch some of the backs. Well, I'm not going to say backside because backside is used by some of our less favorable people out there. So I caught the second half of the price action. How about that?
No,
Sure.
it's back end. You can
back end.
Back end because you can take that. You can take that a lot of different ways.
That's so subjective, right? Exactly. I caught the back end.
It's the implication.
Yeah,
We'll
absolutely.
use that word from now on, the back end.
So, Mike, you think a lot of guys in the room trade similar to you, or it's a big mix?
I'd say it's a mix because a lot of people, how I try and teach people the right way is I tell people to master longing before you short, because that's how I learned. And I feel like people that try and either learn both at the same time or learn how to short first and then long, it will increase your learning curve longer than it needs to be. So
I agree
Why
with
do you?
because I feel like you can't really, if you don't really know what a top looks like until you understand how longing works, right? Or you don't know, usually you should be covering where you want to buy, right? And so that psychology, I think, gets imprinted in your mind easier if you learn in that way, as opposed to, shorting first and longing second. That's just how I learned too. My first year was longing, and then I didn't short till my second year. And I found easier success shorting once I knew how to long,
I think that's actually an interesting point, and it, for one, I never even thought about it like that. That you have to learn the elements of when it's time to leave a long to become a short.
Yeah.
Ultimately, there's a bunch of different ways to learn to trade, but I think it's important that you reinforce that to the people who learn from you, like ultimately, because that's what a room should be. If you're coming to a room, they should be breaking down for you exactly how to trade. It shouldn't be a bunch of subjective platitudes. It's like, no, this is what I can validate works, and take it from here and run with it. If you have to iterate it to your own personality, so be it. But here's something that definitely works. Take it from here and run with it.
Yeah, basically. Like today I traded UUU and I longed it and then I shorted it. So, being able to play both sides of the trade as opposed to being also helps you be less biased, I would say.
All right, enough of the bragging, longing, and shorting.
I like these days. No, but that's true, because I started out just shorting, and it took me, I really hope that closing bell is not in the recording. It took me a couple years to really, and I almost had to stop trading for a moment just so I could really focus on the long side and look for these triggers, look for these cues, and almost teach myself to trade long so that I wouldn't be just such a one-trick pony.
Yeah, it's definitely, I see a lot of students that they just get biased because that's all they know, you know? And then when you come in and try and teach them the other side, they almost look at it like they don't even want to accept your constructive criticism because they don't even understand yet,
Right.
I agree. The trading does not have to be the Greeks and the Turks. Just because someone makes it long doesn't mean you can't also make it short. You don't need to hate the other side of the trade. That's just that's like the stereotypical Twitter commentary is, oh, what type of idiot is long this? And it's a stock that's up 700% on the day.
Right.
No, that sounds awesome.
Right?
I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. UUU had a few outside Twitter forces in it as well, didn't it?
Yeah. Which is, I think we talked about this on Friday, trying to reverse engineer these suckers, to, like when I see a certain stock move on my scanners that has a certain float and a certain chart, there's a pretty high probability that there's a couple of characters that might pick it up, and UUU, I think, was one of them. Pretty quick too.
I like the characters. I actually think that if we can get together, get a stock called Rogue, make the ticker Rogue, and maybe make the
I'm
float,
already long.
If we make the float 5 mil or less, I think a certain somebody would buy the entire float and maybe hold it for just a little while.
You're not wrong.
How does this certain somebody get away with not having to file when they own over 10% all the time? That's still my question.
I was curious about that you mentioned that.
Just saying, guys. Just saying. Watch out. Will's going to be erased tomorrow. Like, we're going to go to publish, and I haven't heard from Will. It's like he's been erased.
I think to answer your question, Will, that all stems from going rogue.
Oh my, you know what? Very good point. You're 100% correct.
Okay.
But Mike, let me ask you this: did you have a long, like, what was the process to validate your edge? Because you're talking about, all right, I learned to be long. I learned the elements of a top. It helped me become short. Was there something that basically a mechanism that told you this is what my edges look like, and how long was that process? Because we're trying to cater this to someone who's newer to trading, right? So imagine you're talking to someone genuinely under PDT. How would you describe that to them?
So for me, it was a lot of trial and error my first year. I think a lot has to do with float structure in terms of at least what I consider my edge. Like my edge does not work for a lot of stocks that are 100 mil float and above. Um, so like my first year was basically looking for stocks that are in consolidation patterns that used to be relatively expensive and have been in a major decline and or consolidation phase. And then I'm looking for basically some type of consolidation bounce. And this works more so for lower float stocks than it does for the higher floats, because the analogy that I like to use is a car. If you get into a Honda that has like a V4 and it has like 200 horsepower, you're really going to have to push that gas to move the car. But if you get into a Ferrari, with a freaking 800 horsepower engine V12, you tap that pedal even a little bit and it's going to move fast. So I consider these lower float stocks like Ferraris, where you do not need a lot of buying pressure to move them. So when you see a certain pattern that's, very recognizable among technical analysis, which is very recognizable amongst the community because we're all looking for the same patterns, that, usually see some type of, buying pressure that moves it. And then getting a feel on Twitter. This is like, social media and kind of gauging market sentiment. And if anyone's even aware of it, this will help, validate if there's any eyes on it as well. If that makes any sense.
No, it totally does. My, I guess, only thing about it is most guys that buy low float stocks are the same guys that do lease the Ferraris or rent them for a day and take pictures.
Yeah. Yeah. So my whole thing is I really won't long something unless there's news. That's the thing.
Right.
At least with size. Right. Like today I longed UU just because I thought that who was going to get involved with very small size. But if I'm going to long, there needs to be a catalyst. Otherwise, it's a short.
Right.
That's the difference.
And that's what you see carries weight. That's where you'll see a lot of guys that like intraday shorting will get frustrated because there is a catalyst. And so they're trying to short it, but there's a reason for it to hold. And it'll show in the technicals as well. So with that, man, what do you think are common characteristics in traders that are successful and ones that you don't see successful? I guess, especially running a chat and seeing guys come in from day one to potentially make it, who falls, who stays.
Yeah. I get a lot of people that love the whole, I'm a day trader, so I'm quote unquote working / trading all day, from 9:30 till 2:30, they're just constantly churning and burning. I think that's one person. And the other type of person is the people that I think don't genuinely believe in what I call the fundamental market truths, which is something Mark Douglas talks about in his book, Trading in the Zone. Which is
no free ads.
No, yeah. Sorry. But
that is a great book. Sorry to cut you off. That is a great book. Absolutely. We've talked about it on here before.
It teaches beliefs that you need to hold just so the market can make sense to you, right? And people don't like to believe the whole concept of there's a random distribution between wins and losses with any edge. So like if people lose twice in a stock, they're much more hesitant to take that third trade, even though their system says they should.
Right. It's just like the casinos.
Yes, exactly. And most people don't have the mental capital to take that third trade when maybe that's the trade that they should be taking the most, So I think a lot of people don't have the mental capital to make it in trading, honestly.
And mental capital is a great point to bring up because that's, in my opinion, I think people blow through it quicker than they do their physical capital a lot of times.
Definitely.
I would bet anything that's true. I would bet anything that's 100% accurate. People aren't actually at zero or necessarily under PDT when they quit. They're just they dread being in front of the screens.
Yeah.
Yep. I think shaping your mental capital to the realities of trading is 60% of the battle unto itself. And I know we've brought up like 8 different things on this podcast that were like, that's 72%, that's 90%, that's 14%. And like, we're probably at like 630% now. But in seriousness, mental capital, mental equity, however you refer to it, is so crucial to your longevity. And it's crucial to your ability to consistently apply the edge. I'll take someone with a bad edge, but a good capacity to understand their psychology over someone with a great edge, but no capacity to understand their psychology.
Same.
Yep. And Mike, so you like to help keep your mental capital by trading the open, trading the morning, and then backing off.
Exactly.
And I'm very similar in that way.
I think that, everyone's different, right? But I don't know many people that can have like 300 tickets a day and like still maintain their mental capital. Like I can blow all my mental capital like on Monday and then tomorrow feel like I'm not as aggressive trading. So I need to trade less,
Yeah.
But everyone's different.
I think it's important to acknowledge where you are yourself in that realm. But because some people can last all day, some people can't, but nobody can go through that many tickets. Like, I don't care if you can last all day or not. You can't go through that many tickets. You'll become almost too desensitized to the risk you're taking, or the realm of your trade just won't be substantial enough to be successful in the long term. So,
yeah. And so, Mike, we already are starting to touch on this, and it's going to overlap. But what are the elements of trading that totally new participants don't realize that are crucial to their success?
So my biggest thing that I've been saying lately is this is probably the only job in the world where we get paid for opportunity and not for time. So if you're a teacher, if you're a police officer, if you're a lawyer, like you go to work and you have an hourly wage, right? Or you can at least calculate it. There's nothing that's even relatable in trading to that, right? So everyone assumes like I need to work, so they come to the day, and if they're not clicking buttons, then mentally they think that they're not working, which is like the complete opposite. Most people associate that, and they have a problem detaching that with trading.
Well, it takes a lot of self-discipline to sit there and watch things and not click a button when your edge is not presenting itself. But I think what we just talked about with mental capital, you're getting paid by opportunity. And if you don't have the mental capital in the reserve, in the tank to seize the opportunity, you're going to really struggle.
Yeah, it's true. And I think to add to that, like this is not only do we get paid for opportunity and not for time, but you can also go to work and then lose money.
That's the worst.
As a trader.
Right?
Worst. Like that's what I joke about with Fus all the time. Like, so I sat here for 7 hours and I actually lost money.
I paid to be here. I paid to be in this seat.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I look at like an NBA game and like $150 for a ticket. I'm not going to pay that. It's ridiculous.
Right. And most people can't stand to lose, like I think that it goes back to mental capital. It goes back to a lot of things, but like it's relatable to sports. I think the analogies I use are sports in terms of baseball players, basketball players, right? Like what baseball player bats 1,000, what basketball player shoots 100%? Fucking no one.
Well, you should have seen me in 8th grade, man.
I bet.
No, it is true. There's an element of being super successful. You're still going to have error built in. And if you are not accustomed to that, if you're going in with an unrealistic expectation, or if you're executing your trades in a way that you don't give yourself room for that error, it's going to get ugly in a hurry. You really should never start. Like, I don't want to discourage people, but if that's going to happen to you, you should never start. But now we get into the real painful, fun stuff, the stuff that newer traders like to hear, and maybe they can empathize with. Maybe you're in a bit of a rut. This is the segment, Poorer But Wiser. And so basically what we're going to ask you, man, what is something that happened in your trading career that was extremely painful at the time? Could have been a substantial loss, could have been a consistent habit that was making you basically pull back, that at the time felt like this is it, fatal error, fatal roadblock, I'm done. But in reality was just a stepping stone to you ultimately becoming a successful trader and was necessary for you to have progress in the long run.
It's a great question.
Thank you.
Honestly, I'm going to say like before I started shorting and I only longed, and that was like my only my only weapon, right, was longing.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a period, I didn't start shorting until like summer of last year. So a couple months before that when I was long biased, and there was like a month or two where like there was just nothing working, right? And I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, what am I going to do? And that's when I seriously got deep into back testing and journaling and taking on more of a repertoire and more setups. Because I thought that I couldn't do this, but the truth was that I didn't know enough and I didn't have enough setups to trade. Because I feel like in certain markets, like the one we're in, maybe you could have been a sick trader last year, but this year the market's kicking your ass. It's not because you're not good enough. Maybe it's because you don't have enough setups. And there was a point where I didn't think I could do this, but that wasn't the case. Once I added the setups, that's where I started to diversify and kind of get my edge back. But I think a lot of people can relate to that. If they're kind of stuck with a couple setups they're trading, maybe there is a couple of, not to name names, but chat rooms that they're in, and they feel like the shit's not working. They just need to wake up, and see the big picture.
Hey, Cameron Moss is just in a little rut. He's going to come right back. But no, in all seriousness, man, I think that brings together so many elements of our conversation. And I know every time you say something, I'm like, oh, that's so great. But really, it's important to note it's not like necessarily that you aren't able to handle a market, but if it's trying to put a square peg in a round hole, you can't be strictly long in a market where it's not going to pan out if you're talking about short time frames. You have to be able to adjust to the environment you're in, and it's not your capabilities. It's just that you're literally fighting an uphill battle, and your mind will completely go haywire and you'll be out of the game if you don't recognize that sooner than later.
Yeah, it's super frustrating, I think, especially if you're in a market that you don't understand and then you're just like completely biased on how you're trading. Like, honestly, I don't know any traders that are strictly long biased that make money just longing in this market besides Moss Cameron.
Yeah.
Well, of course.
It helps if you can manufacture them.
Cameron Moss.
Yeah.
You
better hope those koi fish don't go through a freeze.
No, that's where I roll my money into.
No, I definitely know, particularly this market today. I mean, the market closed, well, talk about some insanity. I had my head turned because we were interviewing you, but market closed down 55 basis points, 0.55%, was at one point down 2% when we were coming on here, and was up 1.4% earlier in the day. But if the market was up 1.4% at basically 9:50 Eastern, and then it's nothing but straight down from there, if your approach is to continually long and step over dollars to pick up pennies, this is going to be near impossible for you. It's not going to work. We're talking about short time frames. We're not talking about longing it and holding forever. We're talking about short time frames. You can really get screwed getting too obsessed with one side of the market or the other.
Yeah, it's not easy in this market, especially the one that we're in. Maybe when we were in the 3 or 4 years ago, when the market was still in good uptrend and everyone was bullish, but I think the tone has changed for sure.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more pessimistic views on the market, and just I think a lot of people are losing the belief that we can continue to go higher in the short term. So we'll see.
Yeah, I happen to agree with you. So before we let you off here, because we're definitely we're pushing our entertainment limit. We get to the point where Wes and I are just entertained by each other, but everyone else is like, what the fuck is wrong with these guys? Let's ask you, man, what do you have on watch? Anything for the week in particular, or you just taking it whatever the scan gives you in the morning?
Yeah, lately that's kind of been the game plan. I kind of enjoy this type of market because I don't have to create a watch list, per se. I can just wake up and see what's moving on the scanners. And I like to stick with names that are high RVOL, so if it's not on the scanner, then it's probably not going to have high RVOL or high, above average range. So that's what I kind of like about this market, where you can just kind of rely on the scanners. And if nothing's there, then you kind of just sit back.
Just stroll in and get paid.
But I would like to watch Solo for the next couple of days.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Yeah, Solo hung around a little better than I was expecting at the end of the day there. I'm also Tesla and Netflix are perma watch for me. When you have a high VIX, high beta gets exasperated that much more, it gets exaggerated that much more. And yeah, Tesla, Netflix, two of the best ones out there.
But yeah, Mike, thanks for coming on, man. If you guys want to check out Mike's room, that's the Foods for Trading room. Check him out. He's always in there every day. Hopefully, we can get you back on here for a Thirsty Thursday session.
Hell yeah.
Excellent.
Like
All right. I like that enthusiasm.
All right. Well, Mike, thanks for coming on, man.
Good stuff.
All right.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, seriously, thanks so much. There was a lot of good insight from that interview. We really appreciate it. And we will wrap it up with that, guys. Thanks for tuning in. We have Thirsty Thursday coming up this week with JM from All Day Holds. Lord knows what he's up to, but we have a few tricks up our sleeve to really agitate him. So
We'll
should be a
find
good
out.
one. But oh yeah, everybody have a good one.